again, once again, with the fairly interesting critical task of having to review a Marvel movie. I've said this during some of my reviews of some of the, standalone films, the ones that aren't like the big epic team-ups or the really important cultural touchstones like Black Panther, that reviewing Marvel films is not an easy task, at least not for me, because they're all good. They're all varying levels of good. They're either extremely awesome, important, genre-redefining classics, or at the very worst, they're good, they're serviceable, they're fun. I know retroactively history wants us to believe that Iron Man 2 and Thor 2 were these crimes against nature on the level of a DC film, but they're not. They're still good movies. But what I find interesting about this one is that I belong to a couple of online critics groups, trying to get these videos out there, trying to get some more eyes on them. And what's interesting is, of course, this was a big reviewed film. Everybody's taking their shot at this one. And what I see is people who either think this was a home run, knocked it out of the park, everything's perfect, or the folks saying it's complete miss and they totally dropped the ball on it. And I think what's weird for me is I'm coming down somewhere in the middle. I don't think that this is one of their stronger ones. This isn't, like I say, this is not on the level of a Civil War or a Black Panther or Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not quite in that wheelhouse. But it's definitely on the level of, say, Doctor Strange, or maybe the first couple Tom Holland Spider-Man films, which I know no one wants to admit, but they're average. They're fun, they're serviceable, but it just feels like there's a little zip missing, just a little zip. So the basic premise of this one is, of course, Marvel now wanting to do a kung fu film, and I mentioned when I did my review of Snake Eyes that clearly this is the film Snake Eyes was trying to be, and when you see them back to back, it is clear just how out of its league Snake Eyes is. You can't compete with Marvel on this thing. Okay, so getting kind of all over the place. Let's narrow our focus a little bit. Let's talk, what is this one about? Well, it's kind of your typical origin film. We have our hero, who I'm going to mispronounce his name, so pardon me, Shang-Chi, I believe is how he says it, who is the son of this immortal warrior who has basically been around for thousands, hence the term immortal, but he's been this great conqueror, all thanks to these 10 rings, these 10 weaponized bracelets, basically, that he's used to kind of forge this mighty empire. Basically, the terrorist cell from the first Iron Man is an extension of his modern day army. And of course, when the villain from Iron Man 3 was creating the Mandarin, they're basically aping the 10 rings iconography to try to make it more legit. So they had a big issue with Trevor Slattery there. So anyway, Shang-Chi doesn't want anything to do with it and basically runs away. He's trying to live a different life, but then his father's men come after him for various reasons, and it's this whole deal. It's a whole accepting your family, coming back to where you belong, finding your place, all that kind of spiel. Along the way, he's reunited with his long-lost sister. He brings his pal, played by Awkwafina, along to be kind of the comic relief. She's our Michael Pena from the Ant-Man films for this one. So that's your basic feel. It's a family drama of, difficult parents and, strained familiar relationships, played against this backdrop of this supernatural kung fu movie. And one thing you have to give this movie a lot of credit for is the fight scenes are just completely off the hook. I mean, these are some of the best martial arts fight scenes that you are ever going to see. And what I love about them is that they are And you realize that, obviously some of it is CGI enhanced for some of the more, the crazier stunts, but the movements of the actors and stunt people and fighters is just so fluid. It's such a beautiful thing. It is like a dance. I know it's a cliche to say, but it really does feel like a dance. In fact, one of the first fight scenes in the film is actually a dance. And it's really, really beautiful. And yeah, it's just kind of thing. Watching the fight scenes in this is spectacular. And the Marvel films always find a way to make familiar fight scenes somehow fresh and new. The opening fight scene or the secondary fight scene on a bus, the big set piece that you see in all the trailers, the long fight scenes on a scaffolding. It's just they make the most out of the environment and out of the premise, and it really tracks well. It's beautifully shot. The choreography is fresh and energetic. It is a little over choreographed, but it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like heightened martial arts and heightened kung fu, but it really, really looks good. So when this film is at its height with the fight scenes, it's really, really kicking ass. And I also really like that the family drama is the center of it all. They're trying to take a page from Guardians of the Galaxy and keep the focus on the family emotions, and they really try to play up the fact that even our villain, his father, who is our on-the-ground villain for the piece, even he is not necessarily a bad guy. He's a broken person. He's a heartbroken person who lost the best part of himself and, doesn't believe there's anything good there. So I don't think he's the best in terms of Marvel villains, but I think there's a genuine effort there to make him a little bit more three-dimensional than some of the other ones we've been getting. I've never had a problem with the Marvel villains. I know a lot of people love to criticize and do the whole, oh, they have terrible villains. They don't have terrible villains. They have good heroes. The villains are not there to be the stars of the show like they are in Batman movies. They're there to, just be the physical challenge the hero has to get through in most cases. So as long as you have a good hero, you're going to have a serviceable villain. So I gotta turn around. So that's kind of my argument there. Ironically, I kind of wish the film starts off in kind of one mode. We're going to do a hyped up kung fu movie, like, a comic book kung fu movie with a little bit of family drama, a little bit of Godfather kind of mixed in there. And then it goes kind of off into the fantasy realm of it, where they go to his mother's mystical, magical village, which is overrun by Pokemon, essentially. And, there's a whole fight with, dark creatures and all that. And this is one of the places the film kind of loses me. It's not that any of that is bad, is that I think it's a bit much. And we move from one point to the next so quickly that it just feels like you lose the thread. It feels like there's a little too many coincidences, and all of a sudden we're shifting gears and going here and going there and doing this and doing that. I kind of wish that what they had done is let this one play out with the family drama, the kind of like I say, a hyperactive martial arts / Godfather kind of takeoff, and saved the big set piece, mystical, magical, ancient village kind of shtick. Save that for a sequel. I think that's more sequel land. I think they really are trying to take advantage of the fact that we are now familiar with the Marvel Universe. We know that weird shit happens. We know that magic and all this exists. So they don't really need to ease us into it. But I think with this being the introduction of a brand new hero, and one who is fairly obscure, Shang-Chi is not the most popular or famous of Marvel characters. He's a pretty obscure fella. And Marvel has a great history of taking their obscure characters and making them, suddenly relevant. I mean, again, who heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy? Nobody really cared about the Guardians of the Galaxy until that movie came out. And I wish that for this film, where we were trying to get to know this new character and understand his world, I wish we would have stayed in his world for this one and then gone off into some more darker fare or more fantastic fare, perhaps, in an inevitable sequel. Because it just feels like the film is unbalanced to me. And I also think that, I hate to say it, but I think one of the problems with this film is the main character, is Shang-Chi. Now, this is nothing against the actor. I think the actor does a very good job. And especially for a young actor, up and coming. I know he's been on a couple TV shows and he's very good on there. But this is like, as far as I know, his first big, multi-billion-dollar blockbuster, world on his shoulders kind of thing. And the actor equates himself very well. So this is not a knock on him. This is a knock more on the writing. I don't think that Shang-Chi is a very well-developed character. I feel like there are times when it feels like this movie is really trying to be Black Panther. With the family drama and introducing all of these really well-rounded and interesting and immediately iconic characters. And they're trying so hard to do that. And in many ways, they do. The film is populated with a lot of really fun, really good characters. But unfortunately, next to them, Shang-Chi comes out looking pretty bland, pretty milquetoast, And I feel like there's a much more interesting character in there, and they definitely have an actor who can pull it off, but I feel like the writing let him down in this one. I feel like they should have focused a bit more on him in this one and maybe brought in some of these other characters later on. Let us get to know him and let us connect with him before, we try to focus on all these other people. Because the other characters in it are a lot of fun. I gotta say, I really enjoyed Awkwafina in this. I do think she has a tendency to play things a little too big. Really hanging a lampshade on the fact that she's the comic relief. But she's still fun and she's still good. What I liked about this one, they hinted that they might be trying to do this in future films, and I hope they don't. I like that these two were not romantically involved. They were friends. I think the Marvel films, if one of their weaknesses, especially with their early origin films, is they feel like they all have to have the unrequited love interest. They feel like that's part of the superhero, coloring book, and you have to use that color. And some of the ones that have really stood out, like, say, Captain Marvel, are the ones that have said, no, we're not going to worry about a love interest. We're just going to let the hero be the hero and give her a fun buddy to play off of. And I feel they did that really well here. Awkwafina is a good side character. She's a good foil. And they kind of hint that maybe they liked each other and maybe it was a more than friends kind of thing. But I'm glad they didn't go there, and I hope they don't. Shang-Chi's sister is also a really fun character who gets a plot and, an arc, and Awkwafina's character gets her own character arc. So all these characters are very well developed and they populate the movie well. I just wish they would have given a little bit more of that to the main character. All that being said, though, again, the fight scenes are really good. It's very different visually from any of the other films, which is one of the appeal of the Marvel movies, is that they all look and feel very different. The color palette of this one is just spectacular. There's some absolutely gorgeous shots. I ended up just which, you know, for the time it was playing, I ended up in the IMAX theater. I haven't been to the IMAX theater here ever, and it's just kind of the way the cards fell this time. And man, the visuals really look gorgeous up there. Some of the CGI characters, I know Rivi is just gonna fall in love with them when she sees it. They're gonna be her new favorite things. So yeah, I'm trying to think of what else really. I guess I love Michelle Yeoh. I really love Michelle Yeoh. She's a phenomenal actor. I love her on Star Trek Discovery. She was great in Tomorrow Never Dies. You know, she was wonderfully horrible in Crazy Rich Asians. She is a national treasure. She's an amazing actor and one of those immediately iconic, recognizable people that you put in your movie and you automatically go, I know who that is. That being said, I think she's another one the writing kind of lets down. She's an exposition machine, and it's her job to kind of make this sudden, out of nowhere plot turn sound believable. You know, again, I think this is another thing that they could have set up in this film and paid off in a second one instead of trying to cram it all into one spot and giving poor Michelle Yeoh the undesirable task of trying to make all of this exposition sound plausible. But again, I feel like I'm really ragging on this movie, and I don't mean to, because when it all comes down to it, I really liked it. I had a good time. Fun movie. Visuals are amazing. I think we have a main character who is going to become a power player later on. I think maybe when they get a little better script under him. But there's a lot of potential there, I think. I hope. Potential that wasn't really tapped here. So I'm looking forward to see what they do with the character. And they hint in one of the two post-credit sequences that him and the mystery of the 10 rings, what they are, where they came from, you know, whose they are. I have a feeling they're somehow going to end up being tied to the Eternals one way or another. That's going to be a pretty interesting plot point for whatever the big, you know, overarching story is going forward. So we're probably going to be seeing him again. Interestingly enough, I know I'm not going to spoil the post-credit sequences because that's part of the fun of a Marvel film. But at the end, they didn't say Shang-Chi would return. They said the 10 rings would return, which is interesting. I'm not sure why they kind of made that distinction, but I guess we'll see. All right, so that's kind of my take and my feelings on the latest offering from Marvel. In the year of Marvel, there's going to be 4 Marvel films to see before 2021 is out. So we'll see how they go from here, because next up will be the Eternals. All right, so let's wrap this one up. So final grade for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the 10 Rings. I'm going to go a B- on this one. I don't think it was one of their strongers. It didn't come out the gate, I think, like they were hoping, like something like Black Panther or Captain Marvel. But it's still good. It's still fun. It does a lot. It has a lot of interesting things to do with its premise and with its characters. I think there's still potential to be tapped with these main characters and where they're going to go and what part they're going to play in the larger story going forward. So it leaves me wanting a little bit, but I still had a good time. So B- for this entry from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay, so thank you all for joining me. That's about all I've got to say. So I hope you've enjoyed. As always, I've enjoyed bringing it to you. And as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.